Esoteric Trading Solutions again. Thought I'd just do a quick review on the new ICO called Credits. Hope you're all living the life you want to. Hope you're all kind to each other, kind to yourself, kind to your family and friends, because life is very short and it goes very, very quickly. As I said, I thought I'd do an ICO on Credits. Basically, excuse me, Credits have brought out a white paper, and they talk about a decentralized financial system, which it sounds very similar to a Ripple, actually, financial services, and there's nothing new in this, but the biggest difference is they basically say that they can do 1 million transactions a second, and essentially those transaction costs are going to be something like 0.001. So, and, you know, honestly, I find that very hard to believe. I'm very skeptical about this ICO, I have to say, because they have nothing to prove that they can do that. So basically, they talk about a proof of work, 1 million transactions per 3 seconds. They've got smart contracts. Again, smart contracts really slow up the speed of any transactional type system. So again, that seems very inconsistent to me. What they do say is they say they're a platform that uses its own combined protocol to increase the speed of transaction process, to provide complete security of data storage process and transfer of transactions. There's nothing new here. They talk about, you know, based on mathematical function. Well, every crypto is based on mathematical function and proof of work principles, you know, storage and whatever. And they talk about nodes, and they talk about hash nodes and nodes, but they don't actually give you any specifics about what sort of nodes they are, whether they're master nodes, whether they're, you know, nodes that, you know, validate the transaction or anything like that. They don't tell you the amount of hash they need, or even the size of files, or the block sizes, or anything like that. So when you look at their technical paper, it's basically telling you about blockchain technology, and it's not really telling you anything else. You know, there's nothing. It almost looks to me like it's copy and paste job from another cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, basically just hashing out the blockchain information and nothing else about the specific technology of Credits itself. They talk about proof of work and proof of capacity. Both are slow. If you're talking about 1 million transactions in a second or two, you'd need incredible hash technology, which is seriously expensive, and they haven't even disclosed that what's required to do the million transactions within a couple of seconds. Their vision, as I say, is to deliver financial services, currency, value exchanges, credit funding, and other services direct to each person or business. Everything's conducted with intermediaries according to them. And they say that everyone gets cheaper, faster, and better services, but they don't actually tell you how. This whole ICO Credits really annoys me, because they don't actually tell you. They say, yes, we can execute at high speed in seconds, but they tell you, yes, we're going to do 1 million transactions per second, big deal, and this is going to be the cost of them or whatever, but they don't tell you how they're going to do it. They tell you a system of nodes, but again, they don't even tell you how many nodes. If you look at Bitcoin's got something like 11,670 nodes. If you look at Ethereum, it's got about 25,000. If you look at, for example, Neo, it's got 6. If you look at Ripple, it's got something near 1,000. And again, you know, they talk about this solving mathematical password on the coin, every coin. That's why you need miners, because miners will solve the mathematical password on the coin to actually mine the coin to process the transaction. But then they say that they don't need miners in the traditional sense. So there's, you know, it doesn't describe how the process of the transaction is going to be processed, who's going to validate them, or anything like that. So I'm just really skeptical, I have to say. When you look at any new ICO, buyer be in doubt, because if they don't really explain it properly in terms of their technical paper, and they don't outline it properly in their technical paper, buyer beware as far as I'm concerned. They say that Credits is designed to be scalable, Well, scalable means that you can add more and more transactions to it and do more and more with it. But the reality is they're not telling you how they're doing it. If you want to increase your number of transactions, you have to increase your number of nodes. They're talking about no mining system. Well, the question is, how do they validate the transactions? How do they get validated within the system? They're not even giving us how many nodes they've got or how many nodes they're going to need. So credits say they've got a minimum viable product. They say with many of the features above, but if you look at the viable product, it doesn't give you like a million transaction processing speed or anything like that. It doesn't tell you much at all. And I just find this really very frustrating, this whole credits ICO, because it just seems very inconsistent with what you need for really, really fast transaction speed. We've got to put this in context. Ripple can do up to 2,000 just in their normal system per second cross-currency and foreign exchange swaps. They can do 70,000 or 100,000. But a million, I've talked to some Bitcoin friends as well as IT friends who do blockchain, and they say it's technically impossible to do a million transactions in a second or two or three. It's technically impossible, and technically impossible with smart contracts, which basically slow up the process speed as well. Again, even the algorithm concept they're talking about, SHA-2, is an old algorithm. If you look at this is basically the algorithm that Bitcoin uses. So it just seems to me very inconsistent. 1 million transactions in 3 seconds. You need extremely fast speed. It doesn't go with a proof of work or a proof of concept. You need something like a proof of stake, which allows scalability, and you need a lot more nodes. They don't even talk about the block size of the transaction, and they don't even talk about how transactions are validated, which really, really bothers me. How do they balance the ledger? If it's a distributed ledger, how do they balance that ledger? Again, they don't tell you. Nothing about the number of nodes, no validating of transactions. The biggest cost in blockchain is the validation of transactions and hashing and signer verification. And if you're talking about 1 million transactions per 3 seconds, which is impossible from my understanding, talking to my IT mates, they need huge amount of nodes and huge amounts of hashing power. And assumably they would need more nodes than, say, Bitcoin or Ripple, and incredible amounts of hashing power, and they don't even go into that. If you look at SHA-2, which is what they use, it runs on 106 megabytes a second. The hashing power, one megabyte is 10 milliseconds. It just doesn't make sense. Hashing 1 megabyte takes 10 million seconds. 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds. So it's totally inconsistent what they're saying, the technology that they're saying for what they're trying to do with the processing of 1 million transactions in 3 seconds. It just doesn't make sense to me. They're talking about network consensus, but they're not telling us what's in the network. What's in the network. Who consensus the network? Who basically balances the network? To me, everything they've said in this ICO, in their paper, in their white paper, is just fluff. They're not telling you anything. They're not telling you that the speed, the block size of data, which must be bigger for faster speed. They're not telling you the block size. They're not telling you how the transaction are validated. They're not telling you, also the number of nodes and the hashing power. Another thing too, they're saying you can't access their GitHub, which basically, if you look at a lot of cryptos, you can actually access their GitHub, like Ripple, and you can see how many nodes are there. You can see what they're processing. You can see their transaction speed. This is a massive negative, and this basically tells me, alarm bells, red light is on, red flags, because that is just garbology. They're saying they don't have a beta type or anything to show us, and that really, really concerns me, I've got to say. because they're giving us some crap about not showing their GitHub, which we'll go into just in a second. So they don't mine the cryptocurrency, which is the most intriguing thing. How do they operate a blockchain without mining? Are they doing what Ripple's doing? Well, they're not telling us they are. And again, so it leads me to the question, who validates the transactions, or how do they get validated? And, you know, there's also different nodes which carry out different functions. One node could be for a trusted or principal node. One node might create a whitelist of transactions, and another will confirm the transactions by adding them to the registry. But again, this ICO Credits is not telling us that. And as I said, Bitcoin has, you know, this many nodes, 11,000 odd. Ethereum have 25,000, and Ripple, I think, has got nearer 1,000 now, with different technology to both Bitcoin and Ripple, because it can process anything from 2,000 to up to 70,000, depending on, you know, what system you're using, whether you're using RippleNet or one of their other systems. So it just frustrates me, particularly, this really frustrates me. They don't have a beta or a proto working model. They said their alpha version will be released soon, but on that they then state that, you know, that'll be 500,000 transactions. But, you know, what are they talking about? They're talking about 1 million or 500,000 transactions. There's a Charles Hoskin video that came out, and he basically stated that, you know, this company can make these claims, but doing 1 million transactions per second using blockchain is impossible at the moment. Absolutely impossible. And then someone else said that they read something about credits, and they were talking about an expected transaction speed of 250,000 to 500 transactions per second. But yet their white paper says 1 million. This is just not consistent at all. Then they go on to say they're going to use hardware accelerators. But again, how much hash power would you need for 1 million transactions? Is the mining, if, you know, how do they do the mining if there is no mining? And again, who will make the accelerators, or do they exist? You know, and also, you know, you've got to realize that when Bitcoin was launched, there was a huge amount of hash power in terms of idle graphic cards. So there's just a lot wrong with this ICO in terms of what they state in their white paper that makes me think something doesn't smell right here, I have to say. You know, the hardware infrastructure, you know, it basically is very hard to put in place now because everything's being used. You know, again, true decentralization requires multiple computers all around the globe, even down to, you know, basic ping levels on your computer. You know, computers need to speak to each other, and, you know, the definition of decentralization is you need hundreds and hundreds of computers for decentralization. I mean, I feel this ICO is promising impossible numbers, and if you talk to anyone in IT, it just seems to me they're scamming people. This is a big red flag, and even if you talk to people on look at Reddit, they're all saying the same thing, that this is a scam. Another problem too, if you send an email to the team, which I have, they're not coming back to you. Some people have asked them for questions, and they're just not coming back to anyone, which I find really weird as well. Another thing I find weird too, these are all things I do find weird. The ICO is Singapore based, yet the team is mainly Russian. So why is that the case? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, most people are querying this 1 million transactions per 1 second. Technically impossible with smart contracts. Just impossible. Just can't happen. You know, again, no, they need massive blockchains, massive technical processing speed to do this. It just, you know, makes me very suspicious. And then they talk about compression. You know, compression, what are we talking about there? You know, they don't even go into the technical term of what do they mean by compressed data. Compressing data actually takes more time. So it just doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't know the team. I can't validate some of the team members. I just don't think they're going to deliver what they're saying. And I'm very suspicious, very, very suspicious. again, if you look at their roadmap, there's nothing about marketing. There's nothing about how they're going to onboard clients and businesses to use their cryptocurrency. They're facing stiff competition, particularly with Ripple. Ripple would just kill them. They've got basically the first starter, their first starter at the gate, so to speak. They've got a lot of focus. They've got a lot of publicity out there, Ripple. A lot of people getting to know Ripple. I just don't think they'll come anywhere near Ripple. And this, what they're saying in the white paper just seems absolute fluff to me. I'm not a believer at all. They don't talk about how they're going to get clients on, how they're going to get businesses on. There's no partners that they're connected to. I don't think the team has got enough experience at all when you look at the team of Ripple compared to this one. Ripple's basically my benchmark, and I don't believe they're capable of doing it at all. So there's a lot of suspicions for me, I'm afraid, completely. They're talking about a pre-alpha version available for testing in February 2018 with a full release plan for June 2018. If we look at the ICO, the hard cap 25 million with a soft cap of 15 million, they wanted to collect a minimum of 1.5 million with a billion tokens. They basically collected 3 million, so that's pretty good, but I think a lot of people are going to be scammed. That's my feel on this. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but my feeling is the technical paper doesn't tell you anything, and it's all garbology. Basically, pre-ICO, they sold a bonus of 30%, which basically seems on the high side, and this ICO, when it does list, could be hit by a few huge whales who have got fairly big positions in this ICO. It seems to me this could be pumped and dumped. It just seems to be, has that feeling. Token sales 15th of February to 28th. It works out to be roughly about 17 cents per US per one token. And, it looks like it's got KYC. And essentially they accept Ethereum and Bitcoin. Everyone can go into this except China. And pretty much, the token sale is 60% of the ICO as such. Again, they're looking to, obviously get about 15 to 20 million for the first year operations. For the next 2 to 5 years, a team will sell tokens as needed. And again, they don't say how many tokens they're going to be selling. It's open-ended. And again, that bothers me. There's no maximum amount of how many tokens that are going to come out. And they could basically sell as many as they like. And it does talk about them putting money in escrow. And and they can't do anything until, get access to that for a year or so. The team, the leader is this guy, Igor Chuganov, doesn't have a lot of great experience, I'm afraid, to build something like this, an ICO technical system that can effectively transact in a second 1 million transactions. Again, some of their stuff's inconsistent. They're talking 500,000, 250,000 transactions, a big difference. This guy here, Evgeny, 10 years experience, development teams, only 3 years experience in blockchain. I just don't think they can do it. He had experience in Ethereum, but putting in mind, Ethereum can only do roughly about 12 transactions, every 3 or 4 seconds, or 9, sorry. And again, the rest of them, I don't know, and they're not responsive to questions or emails or anything. So they have 34 team members all up, 8 advisory, and I can't find some of their linked profiles at all. And I'm just really, as I said, really, really suspicious. That again, when you ask them about GitHub, they've published their reply to GitHub. What they've said is their answer is simple: we take care of our contributors. What does that mean? Who are the contributors? Because they haven't mentioned partners or anything. They've said they've developed a unique combined consensus protocol. Well, show us. I mean, seriously, we can't see anything to prove that you've got anything unique whatsoever except fluff. Over 1 million transactions per second. This is all just basic stuff in terms of blockchain. And that's why they're not releasing their GitHub. So they say it's unique. we don't have a patent on it, and we're not releasing a GitHub, which is very unusual, and that makes me really suspicious. The pre-ICO, they did raise $3 million, which is good within 4 days, but I just think, you know, people are going to get duped on this, so please be aware. Social media, Facebook 5,000, Twitter 8,200, Reddit not many people, Telegram they've got a reasonable following, pretty big following. Lots of interest on Bitcoin, lots of interest on YouTube, but most people promoting it. But for me, I won't be investing in this, and I'm certainly not promoting it because I just think there's too many red flags. Anyway, guys, I hope that helps. Send me an email or a text, not a text, but an email or something. If you don't agree, that's fine, but I'm not investing in it, and too many red flags for me. I think it'll be a pump and a dump on the initial opening, and I hope you're all well. Look after yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.